Today, we get to talk about a game with such an infamous past that it became its own meme, kind of how Assassin's Creed 2 became the Glazing game. Let's take a moment, do another jump back in history. Let's talk about Far Cry 3. Now, this was not a game I played at its initial release. This is a game I played a few years after its initial release. I got to play it every now and then, but without the missions, just because one of my buddies had it as a kid. We'd play it in high school. I'd go over and be like, "Hey man, let's hang out. What are we gonna play today?" He's like, you want to just run around Far Cry 3 and blow shit up and kill tigers?" And I was like, "Yeah, seems cool." And that's what we would do. That was one of my first real big introductions to this series. And I mean, what a better game. A game that is still going down in game journalism history as one of those they did it once, they'll do it again things. This is where the common Ubisoft trope comes from. This is where anytime you hear a Ubisoft game use the phrase bell towers, radio towers, any kind of towers, captured outposts, it's this game. This is the game that wrote the formula that we are still seeing. Oh god, when did this come out? 2011, 2012 about? Yeah. So, we're still seeing this formula 14 years later, and Ubisoft has not put it to sleep. I mean, I get capturing outposts in games can happen in other games. It's not exactly Ubisoft made that blueprint, but like having both bases and radio towers to capture, that's a Ubisoft classic. I've played Far Cry 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, Primal. Oh, God, Primal. I've played them all, and it'll always my brain that this is where the origin for all the memes is. Like, it's a game that has so much right and so much wrong at the same time that it's not even close to funny. I mean, the main villain of the game, I bet 10 people who've played this shit couldn't even name the real villain of the game. Everyone thinks, oh, Far Cry 3, and then when you ask them who the villain is, they go, Vaas. No. Vaas Montenegro is not the villain. I mean, he is a villain. He works for the main villain, but Vaas Montenegro was not the intended villain of this game. Like, it's such an odd perspective because that is the cover of the game villain. He is always referred to in almost every shitty slop games forum post you'll see is like, oh, why Vaas was actually a great villain. It's like, yeah, he is a villain. He is not the villain. And I find it even funnier still, even with my playthrough, I avoided as much side content as possible outside of bell towers and bases. There was more time put into Michael Mondo's time acting as Vaas Montenegro than there was as, I'm just going to guess that it was probably the drummer from Coldplay playing Hoyt. Because no one fucking cares who played Hoyt. No one gives a shit who Hoyt even was. Hoyt's the guy at the end of the game that you go ape shit and murder. He doesn't even feel like a big bad. Motherfucker gets off-screened in the least spectacular way. Like, yeah, there's the whole QTE. Ooh. Yeah, QTEs really get my blood hard. Ugh. That's one thing I don't miss about the end of the Wild West of gaming. QTEs. Every game had a QTE sequence, and like games like the old God of War series were egregious about it. You had QTEs every big boss battle, every time you wanted to open a chest. Games like this, it had QTEs for big fighting scenes, but like, you didn't need to. You could have just let me kill the bastard. I don't know. I I went back to this game on a whim of wanting to do more old games because as much as I like playing new games and trying to get to them first, there's plenty of people out there who get, exclusive pre-coverage of those games. You don't really get to see someone take 7 years back in their life and play a game for the first time all over again. I mean, shit, I forgot where most of the stuff was in the game. That's why you don't see me traveling too far out of X, Y, or Z zone. And for the record, with X, Y, or Z, since I'm a map nerd, I have to look at this one more critically for what I know now versus what I knew then. This game takes place in the Rook Islands. This is a fictional area. The Rook Islands looks like it consists of two, maybe a third island that's just slightly pushed off screen. So we've got that. That's our map. Now here's the thing that makes my inner map nerd cringe inside. On most of the Rook Islands, you can find Komodo dragons. And Komodo dragons are really only found on the island of Komodo. They are not endemically native anywhere else. Anywhere else they are, they have been transported to by man. Now, the other thing that gets in the back of my brain and fucks with my history nerd suspension of disbelief is that on one very certain part of the island, from like a bridge to a bridge, you have what they call the Jurassic Park area, where there's lots of Galapagos tortoises. Not possible at all. And the other one is that they have the thylacine. For any non-nerds out there who don't speak dead shit language, the thylacine is more adoringly referred to as the Tasmanian tiger, which is extinct. Has been extinct. Kind of like the dodo. Man knew it existed. Man was able to record in history books in common English that it existed. It's dead now because man overhunted it. And I got to the island and I was like, oh my god, a pack of dingoes. Cool, I needed those for a new bag. And I shot them all and walked up and I was like, thylacine. I don't remember that being in the game. That entire island is covered in cassowaries, Komodo dragons, thylacines, Galapagos tortoises. So that whole island is just ancient shit, but in the worst way, because it's not possible for those things to really live together. Galapagos tortoises do not live off of the Galapagos Islands in South America, not Australia. The thylacine was native to Tasmania, and the Komodo dragon native to its home name island of Komodo. So when I got there, I had to stop for a moment and think, because it was like, oh great, Jurassic Park, cool, got the reference now. As a kid, I never got the reference. Shit, even when I went back to play it as like early 20s, mid-teen, I still didn't even really recognize that was there, and it just caught me now, and I was like, huh, cool, so I'm in the exhibit with the dinosaurs. I spent so much of my time just trying to get around the islands and just try to play it again, just to feel like it did as a kid, being stupid, not really trying to think tactically. And most of the time that actually worked out. Once you get off of Voss's island, the pirate island, and you go over to Hoyt's island, though, the tone shifts, the speed shifts, everything shifts. Like, you could spend probably a week playing on Voss's island with the Rakyat people, and you'd find stuff to do. You'd find hidden chests and caves. You'd find the lost letters. it would be an amazing thing, and you could just sit there and have a good time playing. The second you get to Hoyt's Island, patrols everywhere. You can't go 10 feet without tripping over a fucking guard. The terrain is much rockier, so it's even more difficult to navigate. You either got to climb to the top of a mountain or go fuck yourself. Like, it's such a tonal shift. I think that might be why people idolize Voss as the villain, because you spend so much time there and it's so memorable. And I mean, Michael Mondo made a very memorable character. He also voiced him in French too, so c'est vous. Or not c'est vous, c'est bon. It's such a stretch to see what Ubisoft did and how people remember it, because as I remember it as a kid, I barely remember Hoyt. I remember hating him. I remember hating that the island felt so disgusting. I don't think I actually finished this game, so I didn't have that satisfaction. Like, I would always play through Voss's Island. Hoyt's Island was always kind of a shrug. I never really got to it. I was more into Skyrim at that point in history, so I would just play that instead. As far as the actual story goes, that is, I think, one of the better actual aspects of the game where Ubisoft didn't fuck up. They handle a lot of what I would call hard business that most other gaming companies wouldn't touch with a like 10-foot pole plus. I mean, you have all these kids from, California, rich, white-ish kids. I didn't really get a good look at all of them, but we'll just say white-ish for the narrative's sake. Brother gets a pilot license. At least two of the kids, or at least one of the kids and one kid's parents, have black cards, so they're not just like regularly rich, they're like grotesquely rich. Getting a black card is not easy. Once you have one of those, you can just go buy stuff. Money's not really an issue for you at that point. So they all go on this vacation to the Rook Islands from California, which, if you're flying, you gotta have something with at least good mileage to make it from A to B. Because we're figuring the Rook Islands are just offshore of Australia, so from California to about the New Zealand, Indonesia area, that's the best sky map I can think of. So unless they're going from California to Japan or China and then going further down, that's got to be one hell of a flight. At least 8.5 hours. So, bunch of rich kids go to these islands and they have to deal with the adversity of being captured by pirates, tortured by pirates, and being sold off into slavery. Now, at first, Ubisoft is very ambiguous about the word slavery. They use it 3 or 4 times, but they don't go into detail. And I think it's part of the genius of this scenario they find themselves in, because I want to say her name was Chloe, was the first one rescued. She goes to live with crazy doctor, old white British dude who lives in the Rook Islands, who does nothing but study plants and ferment drugs. Now, from what I gathered from his backstory, his daughter is absolutely dead, and he lives with the trauma of his dead daughter. And so, mentally, this dude's pretty fucked. And he supplants that Chloe is his daughter, and he's hopped up on drugs all the time, so he's flashing in and out of reality with his own personal PTSD, using someone as a placeholder. Like, that's a mentally tough conversation, and Ubisoft was willing to put it in a game, so that's A+ writing there. I mean, kind of Stockholmy. I'm not a therapist, so I wouldn't be able to identify the real symptom syndrome of supplanting a human in your life as a replacement for one you're missing.
And even the doctor, when he's coming down from his drugs in one scene where he's talking to her, calls her Sarah. And then when he kind of starts to realize that that isn't Sarah, he goes, "Oh, goodness, I'm going to need something." And it wasn't, in any kind of sexual innuendo. He meant drugs. He wants to take more drugs to keep the illusion alive. So we have Dr. Drugs on one side. Then, on the other end of things, we have, I want to say, Grant, if I'm getting the name right, was purchased from Voss's slavery by Buck. Now, this is where things get a little harder to talk about while using proper words and not getting absolutely banished off of YouTube as a whole, but this is definitely something that's a little harder to write into a game. I've only seen it written into games properly 3 or 4 times max, and every time it's like a super M-rated game, and we understand why. The slavery that they talk about the entire time is not working a farm, collecting crops, etc. It is sexual slavery, which is not a topic any game really wants to handle because it is a very touchy subject. We live in a world today, even in modern era, where that is still an actual issue. Now, Voss does it at the behest of Hoyt, and Hoyt does it because, as he said, you can find money in any market as long as you have the control of the market. Being on a remote island, secluded, most likely non-extraditable area because Hoyt pays enough money for it. That's a cornered market he's got there. And people like Buck are attracted to that market. Now, Buck, an Aussie native, isn't too far from his homeland, living life on these little islands. So it is telling, but at least Ubisoft, I guess they took the right, I don't know how to say that, right approach by not having this be like, oh, your buddy's getting shipped off to a completely different island. No, there are people living on these islands at the source of the problem. Like, drug junkies living down the road from their dealer. They're close, so they can get their fix whenever. And at this point in the game, Jason Brody has already met the Rakyat, met Dennis, gotten his hands dirty for the first time, and started normalizing how everything in the Rook Islands is kind of fucked up. And when you first talk to Willis about where your buddy is, and he meets Buck, Willis gives you very little info to go on, and instead of thinking, oh shit, I've got to go help my buddy, Jason, out loud, excuse me, says, yes, his name is Buck, and he likes to, and then kind of trails off there. Now, I don't know what the shift in cognitive usage would be there, but you can see that Jason no longer sees saving his friends as he's saving them, getting them out of these scenarios. Jason Brody now sees saving his friends as a trivialism to the big plan. And when he saves his buddy, he still has his humanity about him. Because his buddy's like, hey, don't talk to anybody about this. And Jason's like, hey man, I won't tell anybody. That's all right. Like, he found his buddy shut in a basement, just sitting on a bed, absolutely traumatized. He got him home, and he still said nothing. So Jason's brain keeps flip-flopping between all this is cool and damn, this is serious. So it's difficult to really put into words where Jason is at this point, because when he goes with Dennis to meet up with the Rakyat people, he meets Citra, Voss's sister, which that isn't exactly told right away, but it's a small and important detail. Now, even though Jason has his girlfriend, he does what any young dude from California in his 20s would do when traveling abroad. He starts thinking with his little Jason. And it definitely screws with his brain. He's all for just saving his friends without exception, up until the point where he meets Citra for the first time, and he's like, hey, wait, maybe? And then he does Citra's favor for her, and then gets to walk further into the temple with Citra, and he's like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and toss away the whole saving my friends thing. If I can get to him, I can get to him. But right now, I need me some of that. And you can see that that's almost exactly what happened. You know, she tries to convince him that he will be the warrior, which, okay, good. That seems like a noble enough pursuit. The warrior is not really his pursuit. His pursuit is booty. And I don't care how the writers try to write their way around that one. It was booty. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, booty. Jason had one goal. Because if it was strictly becoming the warrior, he would ask his friends to help him with these things. His friends are living in a cave under Crazy Dr. Mushroom's house, repairing an old, shitty, rusted out boat that's stuck in a cave. A cave they can't even exit until high tide. And Jason's out here absolutely murdering the masses for the warrior. Now, albeit sexual or non-sexual, he has a girlfriend. He could go to the cave and request some booty. She can say yes, she can say no. I mean, it's a stressful situation. Sometimes blowing off steam is good for you. He does none of that. And in fact, he pulls himself further and further and further away from her. Every time you rescue a friend or every time you go back to the cave, you could see them getting further apart. So he's detaching himself because he wants to be the warrior. And it's right around the point where he realizes he's not going home, is right about the same time that he tells his girl, hey, we're done. And I want to say it's not even 2 missions later, you take a drug trip and you end up with Citra sitting on top of you trying to hump your brains out. And it's like, all right, warrior achieved, I guess. Cool. And Jason is no longer concerned with his friends, and he's totally on board with the whole be the warrior for the Rakyat. You kill Voss. Done. Willis says, hey, I can get you to Hoyt's Island. All right. And at this point, you can see everything around Jason starting to slowly kind of fall even further apart. Like Dennis. This guy has been with the Rakyat people for like 15 years. He's part of their culture, their people. They brought him in. And everything Dennis has done, he has done to try to get to Citra. In comes in Jason Brody, California white kid extraordinaire. He's been on this island for, we'll just give an approximation of 3 days' time. And he's already humping the leader of the Rakyat lady. And Dennis, when you exit the temple, is in the hallway just drinking his brains out. And at first, you're just kind of like, huh, be jealous, Dennis. And then you really get to think about it. That dude threw away his life as a mechanic, U.S. Marshal, and he joined the Rocket because he felt more accepted there. His only thing he ever wanted was Citra the entire time he was there. 15 years versus 3 days. It's pretty fucked up. I can understand why Dennis would switch to alcoholism very quickly. And he's just like, yep, all right, cool. Have fun on Hoyt's Island. Don't die. And you get over there. You meet up with Willis's German buddy, Sam. And, you get to go through all of his missions. And at every turn and every point, it is just, we're going to kill Hoyt. And then it changes when Jason sees his younger brother tied to the chair in the basement, and he suddenly kind of regains his humanity, like something snaps in his brain, because it's all been kill, 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 get to Hoyt, kill him, be done with this. And that's what he wants for Citra. The second he saves his little brother, it's no longer about Citra. It's about, hey, we should get you safe. We should get you home. It seems like you can tell he's fighting in his head what is right, what is wrong. And I mean, as brainwashed as he is, it was kind of a self-choice. You could feel pity for him, you could not feel pity for him, whatever. But he let his friends go. He stepped away from all that because he wanted to become the warrior. And right at the end of it all, he starts to doubt himself a little. He starts to actually give a shit about his friends. You kill Hoyt. You get to the end. You have one last drug trip with Citra. You come out of that drug trip, and you're faced with the choice. Now, you can either kill your previous or current girlfriend. I don't really know what they qualify her as at that point. Or you could choose to spare them. And the two endings are very different. I've played both endings. So you kill them. Congratulations, you become the warrior. P.S. You die. After Citra has your baby, gets your nut to have the baby. She kills you. That's that. If you choose to spare them, Citra becomes desperate for you and says, hey, wait. And you're like, nope, sorry. Done. And while she begs and pleads for you to stay, she doesn't try to harm your friends. Because if she does that, she knows there's no way you'll stay. She takes the logical route, which, good for Citra. But denying Citra's love enrages Dennis, because Dennis is a flaming simp and would do anything for Citra. And Citra, weird vice versa, is a flaming simp for you because you are the closest thing to the Rakyat's the warrior she's ever seen. Or she just has the hots for Jason. Whichever. And so going through this, Dennis goes to shank you for turning her down, and Citra goes, nope, don't do it, and ends up getting shanked herself. And then Dennis is like, oh God. And that's that. Like, you get to watch Dennis live his own nightmare of watching the woman he admires so much die in his arms at his hands because he was so in a rage of passion. And it's wild to see, but it's also another good breakdown. You could see what Ubisoft had in the writing. And on the way out of the island, if you go with the save your friends ending, Jason even admits, "Yep, I'm a monster. I did some pretty monstrous shit back there. Go me, but maybe I can be better." And it's like, maybe with some therapy you could be better. That's a lot to hold down. You slaughtered half of a population of animals, killed thousands of pirates, two really rich dudes who no one will ever know have went missing, humped an indigenous leader, and then watched her die. So now we have pirates on the loose with no bosses, indigenous peoples of the Rakyat with no leader. There's no good ending on those islands for anyone over there. And then you've got a group of teenagers who have been through being a stand-in for someone's loved one who died, almost being killed, a victim of sexual abuse, a victim of torture and abuse, and you and your brother having a dead third brother who is never going to make it home with you. It is a lot of therapy that you're going to choke down as Jason to even be a functioning member of society anymore. Plus, it's not going to help that he has the tatau all up and down his arm from all the skill points you acquire. It's not like he could just walk away from being traumatic and traumatized. He's stuck with it. It's with him. You don't just forget killing people. You don't just forget a giant tattoo on your arm that you got for killing people. It's a lot to swallow. And I think while the memes about Ubisoft reusing formulas is very true, this game did some spectacular things in writing that you just don't see anymore. We're too afraid of those storylines because we live in a sensitive society, and it's not bad that we as a society are more sensitive, but we are less prone to seeing those images, those talking points, and it makes life duller for it. We should not admire what those talking points try to get across, but we should acknowledge that they exist, because if we desensitize ourselves, it just becomes background noise, white noise, shit like that. I like when games take a risk, say something bold, try something different, because it breaks the status quo of survival crafting RPGs with absolutely nothing wrong could ever happen here. Looter shooters, actual shooters, and whatever the fuck you want to count games like Stardew Valley is. We have so many repeats of so many things. Finding a looter shooter with a good narrative is damn near impossible in this day and age. Sensitive subjects be damned. I mean, Ubisoft did their finest. They actually said something, and I applaud them for it. Honestly, the game is overall still pretty unoptimized for the modern computer. You gotta turn your FOV all the way up, otherwise your head bobble is gonna be, and you're gonna get motion sick pretty bad. Source, I got motion sick pretty bad. I tried to speedrun the game because of that. Outside of head bobble being the most atrocious thing, and Ubisoft having a 10 for 10 on their what we're going to use as our program for the next 30 games, it's still a good game. It tells stories that are hard to touch. It puts you in a beautiful island location where everything is wrong, just like Dead Island, another good classic. It's a lot of things at once, but what it is not is it's not disappointing. The guns feel clunky. Sometimes you got to load a shell or you're trying to put a magazine in and it just doesn't go in right away. That's good gameplay. I'm not going to sit there and grab every perk in a tree to make my reload as peerless and fast as possible. I'm not trying to win like that. I am just a dude who got thrown into an island full of bullshit. I like that the story puts you in those shoes, and I want to keep me in those shoes. It's humbling. Because every time I die, whose fault is it? Me. Unlike real life, where if I died, I'd be back on the first island eaten by a crocodile, I believe. That was my first death, and that was, yeah, that was where it was at. Stupid me. I will say 7 out of 10. Memes. Good stories. Slightly unoptimized. I got to balance the score there. I can give it a 7.5 out of 10 because of that section where they made you go burn an entire pot field down to Skrillex, which was still very popular at the time. That is definitely a set piece that was a product of its time. Would they do it again? No. Did they do something very similar again? Yep, in 6. Except this time it was Viviro to Spanish classical and Italian music. We can talk about that in the future if I ever have to play that one again. But honestly, 7.5 out of 10. Far Cry 3, it's an experience. If you haven't played it, play it. Just know you will have to face some difficult situations that may not mentally agree with everybody, but who knows? Maybe it's better to not be desensitized. I will see you guys on the next video. I'll probably be wearing the same fit because I have a lot of stuff recorded that I have not talked for yet. So, see you then.